issues. I'll see if I can get another one.
Morning. General Martz is doing the work of 3 generals, and he asked me to step in his place. I'm the chief of human dimension, and since that's my job, he says, you probably speak it better than I do, so why don't you go ahead and be my mouthpiece? So I'm going to go ahead and be that.
There's this button on the right here. We'll have another success. That button right there.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you where I'm from really fast, okay? And so here I am. Arctic is nested in the TRADOC headquarters. We actually have a direct link to the chief and to the Secretary of the Army, although we do talk to General Dempsey, but if there are some issues that we need to get around, and we do have that mechanism, although that has not occurred since we were established a number of years ago. We are the old future center, so we're about creating ideas, writing concepts, thinking way out in the future, and then trying to figure out what the required capabilities are and get them into the Army. General Wallace, if you may remember him, he just recently retired, was very much concerned that we're focused on the gizmo and we're not focused on the human being. What about that soldier that we set out there? We say that we talk about the soldier, and 10 seconds after we say that, we put it aside and we're thinking about that fancy gizmo. And in our Arctic symbol, we have the soldier there as saying that he's the centerpiece of all the work that we do. But he was very much interested in trying to understand what is the behavior, intuition, and performance of individuals. And since we've been doing the work on here, we have been starting to try to address not just the individual, but the relationships between individuals and small groups. We do imagine that in the next 50 years or so, we're going to continue to see the same type of environment. It's going to be persistent, it's going to be low intensity, non-state actors, and things like that as we currently face today. And the way we see our demographics being of a smaller and smaller pool, which we draft our soldiers from, or sailors, wherever we are, we have to be more and more cognizant of what the human dimension is and maintain our preeminence in the land force. So having described what we think is going to be our future environment, we see is that we need to maintain an all-volunteer force. We have no intentions of being conscription like most countries across the world. Our soldiers need to be highly trained, civilians as well as families. Be prepared for what we call our full spectrum operations. Oh, they're taking me. That's great. I don't know if they want me to take me. Maybe I'll say something. How's that? Oh, I got 2 things to hold on to, huh? Okay, so we want to maintain trained and ready forces. We need to figure out a way to recover them and then send them back into the box. So what we did is we did a study first. We did something different than we normally do when we develop concepts. Normally we put a couple of people in a small room with no windows, and we tell them to dream up something, and then they come out and say, here it is. In this case here with the study, we grabbed people from all across the Army, academics, and industry, put them together and say, hey, we want to talk about the human dimension. After 3 or 4 days at Fort Monroe, they actually came to no consensus. So we did send them all home, and then a couple of people did sit down and write something. But it was too big. It was something like 600 pages, and it is very much focused on the individual, okay? So General Wallace saying, I can't get any senior leaders to read this document. I need something simple. So he said, let's call that concept a study, the first document there, and then we'll do a 25-pager for senior leaders. Well, it turned out to be 39 pages, and as General Martz said, is that actually he didn't know how to approach it. What do? Take out 7 or 8 pages and then keep one and then take 7 up, so forth that way. Maybe I get down to 39. And then we had this slick book handout, which we wanted to take to the legislatures because we know that this concept is going to require some resourcing. And maybe if we give them this slick book here, that would be a way to quickly get the idea across so we could get the funding when we need it, as we need it. I think we have some slick books around here, do we, Max? Which actually has a website in the back of it, in which you can get the other 2 documents online if you want to read them. It's an attempt to try to describe what the Army is looking for and where we're going to go in the future. But this is what the study more or less came up with. We have screening devices. We all have them everywhere. But every 10 soldiers we have come to us, we only qualify 2.7 of them into the service. Now, there are some reasons why. Part of it is weight and what have you, or not having a high school diploma. But our ASVAB, our screening tool itself, screens out a whole bunch of them. General Wallace says, why can't there be 5 or 6 out of 10 that actually I can have qualified in the service? We agreed that there's probably something wrong with the ASFAB and it needs to be revamped or replaced. It's a 1950s tool which we've been tweaking for the last 30, 40 years. We need to adjust our retention programs. We need to take a look at our policies. We have up or out. You know, if you reach your level of incompetence, or we say you have no more future as a commander, then we jettison you from the service. But wait a minute, what about the return on investment? All that money we spent on training you to get you to that point. You still have great skills and stuff you can contribute to the service. Or we have 30 years of commission, you leave. After 30 years, you go. What's wrong? There's something wrong with that too if you still have skills to contribute. We need to seek a balance between human dimension components to enhance our holistic fitness. You know, usually in environments where you have a lot of medical doctors and they talk about the health of individuals, but we're talking also about the health of the mind, nutrition, all kinds of things. We, of course, certainly don't want that individual that we just saw in the upper right-hand corner there. But we do want to find a way to maximize each individual person's potential that they hold within them, and then within groups as well. So the component itself, the concept, we divided it into 3 categories. We call it cognitive, physical, and social. Social being social, moral, values, cultural understanding, awareness, interrelationships, social networking. It's all kinds of stuff we're trying to figure out. How do you put this in this one little bailiwick? In the cognitive side, we're looking to optimize soldier decision making. We're trying to understand better learning. How can we teach people better? Minimize the time that they're actually in the formal training process and get them into units. But the training should never end, not just in the formal houses, but in the units themselves. As General Wallace proposed back in December, he was saying that maybe you have 50 guys that come in. We like to block things because it's easier for us to manage. Even when we teach things, we teach it because it's easier to manage, not because it's the best way for people to learn. But if you have a class that maybe takes 50 days to complete and you have somebody who gets it 35 or 40 days in, we should release him either to advanced training or off to his unit and maintain others maybe a little bit longer, you know, if they have not gotten it. So that means we need to have methods of understanding when people have actually learned the task. Physical, as I referred before, is the physical and the mental health, maximum use of wounded warriors, understanding stress and sleep deprivation and its effect on performance, and our social have I already described. So in the ARCIC, we talk about outcomes. What we try to do is describe what we think right looks like. What are we after? If we can describe what we think we're after, then maybe then we can focus our effort as to get there. So in the cognitive component here, we're talking about a recruited force. Obviously, that is all volunteer. And we can't forget our civilians, and even though I don't have families up there, family members are very much a part of it. They support our soldiers. Then obviously you can't go do your job if you're worried about the health of your family. We need to figure out ways to improve the management and way to retain them. And we're looking for ways to accelerate learning. How do we measure that? And we need to give tools, and tools is not necessarily a gizmo, of ways for commanders to understand how can we maximize individual proficiencies, maximize people's cognitive styles or abilities to a mission. Good example would be when we have certain missions where we send people over to provide assistance to foreign armies, and if a person is not culturally aware and open and willing to respect others or differences, you know, he's not going to be very effective in his mission. In the lower right is a little symbol from a DARPA study about accelerated learning using TMS on a simplified task of looking at a threat image or an image to determine whether there's a threat or non-threat, where you had the control that took somewhere around 5 hours to figure out the task or learn the simplified task. But then when you had the TMS cranial stimulation there, they were able to learn the task in half the time. Non-soldiers, these were college sophomores. So some of the things that we know, we talk a lot about this because we seem to have a better understanding in some respects about the brain itself. We know that it has 100 billion cells in about 0.6 cubic feet and uses maybe 2 watts per hour to operate versus a supercomputer that occupies 1,600 square feet and uses maybe 5,000 watts just for cooling, and yet it still cannot achieve the number of computations that our brain has managed to achieve. And that our synaptic connections are far more than the number of bodies that are in our universe. And we know that for 2% of the body mass using almost 20% of the energy, whether you're asleep or awake. There's a lot of amazing things that our brain does Yet as the more we learn about it, the more we understand, the less we know. That frontier about the brain goes further and further out there. Yet we do find some interesting things that we can maybe apply today, or if we can develop it a little bit better, we can apply it in the future, such as men and women are different. We've kind of experienced that, but let me give you a good example. How about spatial navigation, where women prefer on the norm landmarks and men prefer Euclidean geometry? Well, we have navigation courses. Wasn't that a surprise that women have difficulty trying to figure out how to perform that task? It's designed by men, and it's designed for men the way they prefer to learn. A good example would say is that when you go to MapQuest and you ask the direction for something, you get two feedbacks, right? You get turn by turn, usually on the left-hand side, and you get a map on the right-hand side. On the norm, the women go to the left for the landmarks, and the men go to the map, okay? So what we are saying is don't compromise the standard. We need to write training programs that understands the person that's learning and present the information the way they prefer to process it. Learning should become faster, should come deeper, should last longer in that way. Our battle command systems are also designed by men for men, so we need to make changes there. Obviously we've talked about cognitive peaks, like that first discussion talking about people's sleep deprivation and how long can they stay awake or their performance, how well it lasts. We know that we have the larks and butterflies and owls. You have people who perform better in the morning versus people who perform better at night. And then you got people that kind of float in between. Well, a commander knew where people are that way, and when we go to 24/7, you might want to take a look at the type of people you have and put them in the right places in your 24-hour operation. And if I was somebody who was a lark and I'm sitting late at night and need to make a critical decision, hopefully I put somebody next to me who that I depend on who is the opposite of me to make sure I make a good decision. Whoop. I don't want to do that yet. Hello. How do I go back? Can you send me back? I'm going forward. I need to go backwards. One more. There we go. Okay. So on the possibilities, we're thinking far out. Okay. Actually, I have two responsibilities. I got to find out what I can do now, because operational commanders want stuff now. And then I also have to think about future, okay? But some of the possibilities is we're hoping that when a soldier shows up, a person, he's not a soldier yet, shows up at the MEP station and says, I want to join, okay? I want to do an evaluation of him. I want to measure his tenacity. I want to find out, does he have a potential of being a leader, whether it's small group or large group. I want to know what type of cognitive styles or attributes does he have. Would he make a good engineer? Would he make maybe a better infantryman? Or would he be a pilot? Things like that. We want to measure them early and then try to figure out, use this information to put him into the right specialty, the right type of training, because we're even talking about changing his training. Not everybody's a leader. Today, we make everybody go through the same thing. Somebody gets to my grade, has been a company commander. He's been a battalion commander. He's probably expected to go to war college and to be a brigade commander. But not everybody can be successful at those things. There are other things that we need work done that are not command related, but they're staff related, they're research related. There's a lot of other things that a commander needs to have done, and they can't all be done by commanders. In fact, a commander is probably a lousy researcher, or even when you go to Iraq and you're in a room of coalition partners, you're taught over and over again to direct, and then you go into a room and you have no control over anybody else in the room. You're going to get nowhere directing. All of a sudden you have to learn to be nice and respectful and influencing and begging for them to try to see where we want to go. That's the strangest thing I felt when I got to the Army War College. You get there, you're direct, and you get there and they tell you, stop directing, do the other thing. So, well, how do you do that? You just spent a lifetime of telling people to do this, and then you're told to do something different. Doesn't make sense. So we want to identify those cognitive styles that I kind of referred to about between men and women. Cognitive gym is something that's coming up that's been more and more exciting. And Carl, we've talked a little bit about that with Dr. Goldberg last fall. And this is about training your executive functioning of your brain. Normally these brain trainers are talking about memory, how to improve your memory, how to expand your memory. But what about the decision making going on, your prefrontal cortex area of your brain? There's a possibility here. We spend a lot of time training our health. Every day we're supposed to go out there and run around, but we do nothing for our head. Although exercise is good because we improve the blood flow to the brain and so forth, but what do we do to exercise the executive function of our brain? Nothing. Well, we have an opportunity here to maybe bring something out in the next 12 months that we can bring to the force and encourage them to work on their brain as well as their body. Accelerated learning. We're very interested in the prevention of PTSD and building resilience. What can we do to make that soldier have more confidence and trust in his leadership, and that when he goes into a very traumatic environment that he can come out and knows that he can recover? I was in Israel a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things that seemed to resonate about resilience was trust and quality in leadership, relevance of training, that the training itself was actually relevant to the mission itself, the cohesiveness of the group. It seems like in many other countries they do a true cohort that we tried a number of years ago, and it didn't fit everywhere, so we gave up on it because we like to, when we come up with a good idea, we try to apply it to everybody. And I remember I'm an engineer officer, and I'd be in an armored division. They come down for something for the maneuver unit, and it would never fit our engineer battalion very well at all. And then we had a commander who didn't want to go back and try to make a proposal to it. And what we're trying to say here is some things will work really well here. Let's be flexible. Let's use it where it works. Let's apply it where it works. And we want to be able to, when that soldier shows up, is his aptitude for language, his openness, cultural understanding, because there are people that have better traits than others for that. They are more open. And then once we identify them, we can use them and apply them better. Let's take advantage of the skills that everybody brings. The variability is very important to us, as it was mentioned earlier today. Averaging out all of us as a norm, we're actually taking away from each other. Even though we are a group, we actually take away. I think we become weaker instead of taking advantage of the variability that we all possess. So we know that there are traditional tools and methods. We're all familiar with those. And what we're saying is we're supporting the excitement that's coming out in the emerging tools. And even though the fMRI might be several tons, and yet it's not very mobile into the field, although a company called Mind has one that's in a tractor trailer. It's still pretty huge, and it's not very viable to take out there. But we can learn a lot about the brain, and maybe we understand it gives you a certain amount of information resolution deep in the brain, and then EEG provides some other things. But maybe this will lead us to other tools that might be that we can take to the field when we need to, or we can use it more commonly to do the assessments that as I was proposing. And that might lead us to some sort of modeling of understanding of how the brain works. And that we maybe can do fiber tracking as well, understanding where one signal goes from a point to another point. There's a Dr. Snyder, University of Pittsburgh, which we're helping with DARPA and some others. He's calling it the connectome, and he's established a worldwide competition for modeling of the brain. And he claims some kind of credit, thanks for us giving him money to support him to get to a level where he can actually do the aberration, and he's doing an award in June in California from a number of different universities on the modeling itself to see who can do it. And he uses General Martz. General Martz went there and had his brain stuck in the donut, and one of the things that they said was very unique for him, that when he was given executive performing tasks while he was in the donut itself, it was very clear. And the reason why he was very clear, obviously, is because he didn't move, right? And the biggest problem that people have when you're doing this is that they have a tendency of moving, even though they don't know it. They're not moving. And they asked him, how come you didn't move? And he says, well, in the Army, you're used to taking orders. You said, don't move, so I didn't move. So apparently he was very still. And when it comes to executive decision-making on faces, he was given faces, and he had to determine whether they were friendly and non-friendly. He spent a lot of time deliberating whether they were friendly and non-friendly. And he's had a lot of time in Korea overseas. Over half his career is overseas, and he's learned to study faces. So he spent more time than most people had. So they had great opportunity to track the activities going on in his brain. They had to relate to that, and now his brain is being used in classes and on presentations to describe what does the brain look like, the connection fibers. On the physical component side, kind of mentioned it before, we're looking for whole health, food, physical performance, mental wellness, and that's headed by General Cornum, and there's a lot of work going on there. And General Cornum is holding a planning exercise on the 9th of March to try to figure out a way to force, I would say, a new program, new health program on every single soldier. I think it's going to be very hard to do, but that doesn't mean that we don't try it. So she has a model here where she's trying to figure out a way to make our soldiers more resilient, adaptive, self-confident, and healthy. And then Brigadier General Laurie Sutton, who's actually for OSD, is doing some work in the resilience area where she developed a model that some of you may have seen that she released back in November at a resilience conference, where she developed 4 areas where optimal, we're fully prepared and trained and physically ready to do a mission. Then we become reacting when we're given a task. And then if that task is very tough, maybe some of us might become injured, but it's kind of minor. And then, of course, you might have those that are ill. And the idea is to keep people to the left, find ways to build the resilience so that actually they are resistant to becoming ill or injured. That's the best I can actually describe that model. And then the social component, where we're trying to understand not only the individual and trying to optimize his potential, but also we're talking about the interaction that's in a group and how they relate to families, and how when he's walking in, the soldier's walking the streets of Fallujah and he's got all kinds of people around him, he has to have the confidence that his mission is correct, that he has the training he needs to do the right thing, that he has the capability of making the right decision. Is this person here that's holding the baby, is that a threat? Some cases that actually it is. It could be a bomber, right? That has happened to our soldiers. In the social component, we're talking about the character of the soldier. That's more or less what we're trying to do. None of this works without changing policy. We can do all the work we want in these 3 component areas, but if we don't change policy, we don't have it adapted to change and support what we're trying to propose for these things, nothing will happen. If we don't get the upper out of here, if we don't get the duration of 30 years commissioned service out of here, if we don't make use of every opportunity of what we learn in our research and changes in these 3 components, this will die. We're talking about changing the way Army does everything, from the time a soldier shows up to his assessment into the service, his commission or his enlistment, his formal education, his informal education, the command climate, the time we turn him over to the VA. It's everything. We imagine there might be several generations of current Army officers gone before it actually will be taken on. Yet we still need top cover, and we still need support from the operational commander. It's a big challenge. I went to the Navy. They had something similar called human force, and it failed. And when I talked to Admiral Lotrin, he said the main reason why it failed was he failed to have top cover, and the operational commanders were not able to understand what he was trying to achieve. So as we have another ongoing thing with the GIFCOM, and one of the comments we made is that the operational commander in the field needs to understand what we're saying. We cannot quibble over what does cognitive mean. We have to come to an agreement of what we're after, what's the goal, and then communicate it to them, because they're the ones that are going to actually be supportive of this effort. They're the ones that are going to be the big roadblock. If we get them to agree, then we may make some headway. So here's what our normal deliberate process is to get something from an idea that occurs over here in the left-hand corner to the soldier's hand out there on the right-hand corner. Look how complicated this thing is. And my organization is part of the bureaucracy of this effort. Okay? So there's a huge challenge in making human dimension work. So we're trying to figure out all kinds of ways to get around this. Okay? The gizmo maybe goes through this, but we're trying to figure out other ways. So here's my campaign plan that I have come up with, and I have to provide a description to General Vane, our director for ARCIC, on Thursday afternoon, how I envision who would be responsible for developing capabilities and getting them into policies, and also provide direction to S&T work. Where I take the lines of operation, which your arrows are here, cognitive, physical, social, and a policy. And obviously cognitive is way out there. We need to have money in place for in the POM. We had the deliberate, which is a wiring diagram, and accelerated stuff that good ideas as I come to functions like this. Somebody makes a presentation about something, I go talk to them. What's the roadblock to make it happen maybe in the next 12 or 18 months? If I can help you remove that roadblock, if I can get you soldiers to maybe get your N up and have it more applicable to Army, could we get this into the hands of soldiers, at least on the longitudinal study, to see whether it really makes sense, which is your greatest challenge probably. Then that's what I'm all about. This is kind of a summary of what we're trying to do here. So I'll just end it on that. You can see that Plato actually, way back then, knew the essence of if you can maximize the use of an individual and apply it properly, you could be far more successful.
So we have time for questions. Would you like to entertain any questions?
I'll start off. Before I came to DARPA, I worked for the Chief of Naval Personnel. So I know a lot of the challenges at the policy level, even if you have the science to back it up. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about approaches we might be able to take to move the science through by supporting policy. Because what you show, I mean, that's similar to what the Navy has, right? All the services have to crunch through all of that, all of those processes, and by the time you get it done, it's 5, 6 years later, and it's
Right.
you don't need it anymore. How could we go about helping improve on that?
On the policy side?
How could we help you improve on that policy side? Or is that really a battle you have to show?
Well, one of the things is that people always ask me, which we talked about yesterday when we were meeting, is show me, prove it. And I don't have a lot to prove at the moment. I need examples of proof that when I go to people that actually have input to policy or make policy changes, I can demonstrate to them that if you do things this way, that we can demonstrate improvement, you know, in a soldier's performance or an organization's performance. If I had proof, we will see changes. If I have to go, well, give me some money and then I'll come up with it, then I think I'm going to have a much tougher time. So I need proof. So actually, I come here, and as I referred before, and I say, what do you need? What can I do to help you get your work done? You know, because when I see these studies, which is interesting, is you find out they did it with sophomores. Okay, usually it's college sophomores for some reason. Maybe they're more hard up for money and haven't figured out how to balance their personal time with the college yet, and so forth. Well, okay, that's good, but soldiers are different. Servicemen are different because now they've had experience, you know, that affects the way we go about business or how we go about life. So we need to look at those kinds of people. And so if I can give them to you, would that help you? So that's what I try to do. Yes, if I can have proof.
Colonel, if you ask what are the 2 or 3 rate limiting steps or blockages to get to your last chart, what would those be?
On the last chart there,
Yes, sir, the flow chart.
the one with the arrows?
Yes, sir. What are the fundamental things that either technically or procedurally some of the folks here can assist with?
Well, as the one thing I mentioned is having something that's demonstratable that I can go and show people. That seems to be the number one thing when I go see the T-Surge or when I talk to the chief or the vice, that he's looking for proof that we can improve things. And then he turns around and directs. So right now, he's very much concerned, the chief is, about soldiers' health. So then he took General Cornum, assigned her to G3, and tasked her with figuring out ways to improve soldiers' health. But we have not been able to make inroads on the cognitive improvement very well with him. So he has supported the physical side and told us to continue to march. Well, this continue to march is not very helpful to us. So now we're going to other 4-star generals that don't have a current fight, because right now I cannot show them immediate proof right now of what I can do to help them, but I can, those people that look more toward the future see great value in this and are very supportive to us. So we're looking for a different way of getting support to make this move forward. The other idea is there are so many organizations in the services. I don't know who they all are, except I have learned is that there's a lot of research money out there, and I find that sometimes people are doing similar work. And we're spending money on similar work, and they don't know each other are doing the similar work. So I have managed to be able to get some people together. But when I present my plan to General Vane, say on Thursday, I know it's going to be kind of on the ignorant side because I don't know all the organizations. So if I, which I plan to do to you, is to show you what my plan is.
I think somebody's got an email. That's all.
No, mine email thing's over there. Yeah, what I show you is what my plan is to say, hey, does this make sense? I guess I'm asking for some open, I'm open to ideas. So if I sound like I'm full of doo-doo up here on something, I expect you to come up and tell me of a better way, such as, well, I've been presenting this, everybody says, gee, it sounds very individual. What about the social and the group? And that's true, so we have to be focused on that. It's not in a study, so if you read the study, you'll see nothing about interpersonal relationship in small groups. you know, but that's when I have the opportunity to change it, so I'm doing that.
Yeah, I was glad to hear you raise the issue of, even though off center a bit, about cultural influences on behavior, and this comes to this issue of group performance. I lived in Japan for a while, and at the end of my scholarship year, we had to come together and focus on what were the key differences between Japanese society, for example, and American society. And in the U.S., we have a saying that the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? And in Japan, their saying is the nail that sticks up is hammered down. And so it's a fundamentally different way of viewing interpersonal relationships and what are the priorities. And you know, the army lore is filled not just with, you know, yes sirs, follow orders, but those individuals who didn't follow orders, who took their own initiative and, you know, saved the mission. And so
Right.
if we don't realize that that's a critical component of these group relationships, I think we'll miss something very important.
I agree with you, and I saw, at the Army Science Conference, I saw a guy from RAND give a presentation, a study he did in a platoon, looking at influencers in a platoon. And he had platoon leaders, he had two platoons with platoon leaders and then all these soldiers underneath, right? And you know, when they showed all the lines of communication and so forth going on, only one or two went to the lieutenants, and the other stuff went to everybody else within the organization. And one particular NCO, from one platoon, went all the way over to an NCO of another platoon, you know, as where they went to when they had problems or questions or things like that. They didn't use their leader. So it's important for us to understand the social dynamics in an organization.
I think if we could do the last, I think it's time for the last question. Like
Okay.
Maybe one more question. Go ahead. It's more common than a question.
Yeah.
And sitting in a number of missions, civil health frameworks and so on, I find that the struggle of translation from the basic science into any type of either clinical application, that's what we call translational research right now, or what you're asking about application within the military field, is the same challenge. The challenge here is not only in which area of the science we're interested, whether we're interested in individual or group dynamic, or the challenge is much more basic because there is this very strong schism, break between the way the scientists approach knowledge and application. We are fixated on the 0.05. What is this 0.05? The idea is that we want to minimize the possibility that we will make false positive statements. We're not worried about so much about missing opportunities. We would rather reject with confidence of 95%. So because we do not want to make a mistake of making a wrong statement. So we err as a field, as a scientist, people who want to learn basic processes toward that. And the application people want us to move toward application. And there is a direct conflict there. And the same is true for translation. Any type of clinical translation science. People come to me and say, how you can make your change clinical right now? Tell me, what did you show me? And I'm telling all the time what Einstein said. Einstein said everything should be simplified as much as possible, but not more.
Mhm.
But not more, that's Einstein's contribution, right? So the idea is, and I'm worried about an attempt to take an information which is half-baked, often, right? And areas that I know is the brain activity and imaging, and translate that into, we don't know what's better. We don't know whether medial prefrontal cortex deactivation is better or worse than activation. If
Right.
you look on the brain imaging data, whether it's a MEG or MRI or whatever you want to do that, you will find out that one time scientists say, oh, this area is high, it means it's working well, and it means it's good. And then another group comes in and says, oh, this area is low in activity, it means that it's much more effective performing the same task. It's an absolutely legitimate competing interpretation of the data that we do not know. So if you ask me as a soldier, what I want to bring my soldier to increase the activity in this area or to decrease activity And the truth is that we don't. And pretending that we do and taking some of those technologies and use them now is doing things that Einstein said more than possible. So I'm kind of bringing that as a challenging idea. While we do want to translate and we understand this is where it all has to end up. On the other hand, rushing in and using technologies which are not, or science which is not there yet, and trying to do translation will bring us to the poem Fidel just mentioned. It will be to legitimate parallel of technology.
We agree with you that, and that's been our experience. And sometimes we're frustrated that nobody wants to commit themselves to something. And as General Palmer would say, my old boss who retired would say, I'd rather have 55% of something than 0% of anything or nothing. You know, and what we're saying is that maybe we can help you get that confidence factor if we provide you soldiers in a longitudinal study, which a lot of times you guys suffer from, is you don't have the number N and a longitudinal effort to actually apply something. And at this current position that we're in, we're more than willing to try to find ways to participate in a longitudinal effort that you may not be able to actually normally have.
Just saying that this tension has to be recognized.
Yes.
And work with that.
Yep.
Not try to skip that, because this is inherited in this problem.
Yep.
Sir, thank you. Thank you very much, sir. All right. So I have a very important announcement. We will now go on a quick break, very quick break, in room 2103, which is where you got breakfast. There'll be coffee and snacks until about 11 a.m. So we're going to reconvene. I'm going to make a command decision here. All right, let's just go 10:25. That's 10 minutes from now. On 10:25, we're going to reconvene. And John, I put you 15 minutes behind. And you don't have to listen to any more of my jokes. We got another infantryman up here. Oh, the summary. There will be very good snacks in room 2103.